project for this course, we have made a presentation to help understand the topic. In this presentation and video, we will try to investigate the impacts of COVID-19 to the poor, specifically in local Hong Kong society. This is the outline for our presentation. First, we will introduce with the background information of poverty in Hong Kong. Then, based on the information we got from the interview, we will explain the difficulties faced by the poor due to COVID-19, the solutions the poor got to overcome the difficulties, as well as any government aid that they might have got during the pandemic. We will also compare these solutions with those from other countries. Finally, we will make conclusion thinking of how COVID-19 impacted the poor in Hong Kong society. First, introduction, poverty in Hong Kong. This graph shows the poverty rate of various districts in Hong Kong in 2020 when the pandemic started. As you can see from the graph, the poverty rate at Sam Sui Po, the district where we took an interview, had a poverty rate of 26.5%, which equals 109.5 thousands of poor people. Comparing with other districts in Hong Kong, we can see that the poverty rate and hence the poor population of Sam Sui Po is high. Also, some other districts that show similar or even higher poverty rate at Sam Sui Po, such as Kwun Tong, demonstrate that the issue of poverty is not concentrated on only limited and few districts, but is a widespread agenda in Hong Kong society.
When we walk around in Sam Shui Po, there are countless unlicensed hawkers selling all kinds of stuff. We talk to a hawker in the back alley. She's an 83-year-old woman, retired, selling old and used stuff just to kill time. She comes and set up her street stall almost every day since a few years ago. She admitted that her income from it has been low as always. She might only earn a few dollars a day, and she sustained her life only by receiving high-age subsidy from the government. In view of the pandemic, she thinks that it doesn't greatly affect her income since it's always low. But the Food and Environmental Hygiene Department staff has been even stricter, and her friends and her are always under tension. To her, the biggest difficulty facing with the hit of COVID-19 is that she is unable to meet her son who is in the US, and she can't go back to the mainland to meet her relatives. She feels lonely and urged for the relaxation of the tight quarantine policies. Next, we interviewed the owner of an exotic grocery shop. The shop is run by a pair of Indian couples and they suffer a lot from the pandemic. Their income significantly reduced to almost half of their previous revenue, and it keeps on fluctuating these days. They have to pay a monthly 25,000 rent as well as paying for their boys' education and transport fee. They ranted about that they do not get any support from the government and they have had a hard day.
For the solution parts, the government offers a scheme called Temporary Unemployment Relief Schemes, and it is for full-time and part-time employees, as well as self-employed persons. A one-off subsidies of 10,000 each will be granted to eligible persons to reduce their financial stress before they find another job. Also, we have an interview with a social worker from the Social Welfare Department. The social worker suggests that the government to provide more subsidies for the poor. Under the COVID-19, many poor people are suffering from unemployment. Also, they have to pay extra expenses for masks and disinfectants. For the poor children, the social worker suggests that the government can provide more subsidies for them to buy electronic devices, such as iPad and computers. It would be better for them to have the online lesson. Besides, the social worker also suggests that the government or NGO can provide more mental health service for the poor, like counseling service. The limited financial resources are also a stressor for the poor, and this stressor may lead to child abuse and domestic problems, etc. A tragedy like that can be avoided if more mental health service can be provided for the poor. The policy by the government and the suggestions by the social worker are aimed to advance equality. It is to ensure that the poor will still have the equal opportunities to learn and to make a living under COVID-19.
Not only Hong Kong but other countries globally faced the negative impacts of COVID-19. The decline in the economy was significant. In the US, the GDP declined about 10% in 9 months from the business cycle peak experienced in the fourth quarter of 2019. In 2020, the EU real GDP fell by 6.1%. Japan's GDP decreased by 4.7% in 2020 as well. Countries all over the world are suffering from the negative effects that COVID has been having on their economy. The governments have been working to overcome this economic crisis. In Europe, the EU has been working on a recovery plan since the 23rd of April 2020. They gathered a total of 2,364.3 billion euros to support the EU recovery from the pandemic. The coordinated response from Europe at the national level included short-time work schemes, public guarantees, and a wide variety of measures to support the households and firms. In Thailand, there was much support from the government, such as cash transfers, infrastructure projects to boost trade and tourism, liquidity support for firms, and tax relief. There are many attempts in the US as well, such as connecting the newly unemployed quickly with talent-seeking industries, tapping into help from existing institutions, and supplementing federal relief efforts. New Jersey was one of the first states to create a job portal to connect the unemployed to shorthand businesses like grocery stores and large retails. California has established a $50 million micro-lending program for businesses that are ineligible for Small Business Administration loans. States have also started adjusting their taxation system to provide additional relief. Like this, many countries in the world have been putting in effort to help citizens suffering from the economical impacts of COVID-19.
At last, I want to give a conclusion for our video. There are many things that we can learn from this project, and I conclude 3 things here. The first one is that location matters. The reason we chose to do our survey in Senshui-Po is due to that we consider it as one of the poorest areas in Hong Kong. In areas like Senshui-Po, people who live there will be easily considered as the poor, even though maybe not all of them are living below poverty line. This perception can be both helpful and harmful to people who live there. It is helpful since it may catch government's attention and may get more help from the government. However, the firms may not choose to set up places like Senshui-Po since they may think the purchasing power there is low and they could make little profits. And the second one is that it's not easy to tackle poverty. There are numerous reasons why people and family suffer from poverty, including lack of education, lack of the access to medical facilities, and so on. According to our observation in Senshui-Po, we discovered that the hygiene condition in many streets and alleys are really bad. The people who live there may easily get ill. We also found that the buildings there are really old and broke and need to be repaired by construction workers. We did actually witness the repair work while we were interviewing people there. And this can be dangerous, and people who live there may be more easily to get hurt. Also, poor people like the ones we met in Senshui-Po tend to be lacking finance to send their kids to school. This will cause their children to be less productive and qualified than the other kids, and poverty could be endless. Education is one of the biggest ways to eliminate inequality and poverty. However, it can also generate inequality by promoting social stratification. And the last one is that poverty is closely related to inequality. Senshui-Po is considered as the poorest area, and inequality issue there is also very significant. When we did our survey, we saw some tall, fancy buildings like shopping malls situated right opposite to some old broke buildings. Hong Kong is one of the regions with highest GNI per capita in the world, but there are still areas like Senshui-Po where poverty can be seen anywhere. And that's all my conclusion.